The Healing Foundation is a national Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisation that provides a platform to amplify the voices and lived experience of stolen generation survivors and their families. It was founded on the 30th October in 2009. The Healing Foundation's Stolen Generations initiative was designed to meet the unique healing needs and aspirations of stolen generation survivors with a focus on collective healing. They partner with communities to address the ongoing trauma caused by actions like the forced removal of children from their families. They provide an environment for stolen generation survivors and their families to speak for themselves, tell their own stories, and be in charge of their own healing. They promote healing pathways for Aboriginal children, young people, and their families. They are committed to working together with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to create their own healing responsibilities, developing an evidence base for best practice Indigenous healing and sharing this emerging evidence with communities, government and non-government organisations around Australia. They integrate policy responses that support positive cultural identity and healing, and they promote truth and create an understanding of colonisation and the trauma legacy.
The Healing Foundation communicates these aims, values and activities through numerous ways to accommodate different audiences. Young Indigenous audiences are addressed through the Healing Foundation's Stolen Generations resource kit for teachers and students, where they communicate on a nationwide scale to educate them on the stolen generation and encourage school communities to start the conversation and inform classroom discussions based off of truth, thus portraying their aim and value. The Healing Our Way podcast addresses Indigenous and non-Indigenous audiences through the global streaming platform of Spotify to communicate topics relating to intergenerational trauma, racism, identity, culture and healing, which is a strong aim of this NGO. #OurFuture also utilises social media as a medium of communication to continue this conversation amongst a broader, more global and audience and effectively portray their activities, aims and values.
The Healing Foundation sought to motivate audiences through the use of different media communication channels like their website and other social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. A prime subsequent for this may be seen through their YouTube animation that helps signify the impact of intergenerational trauma. This YouTube campaign has been utilised to invite us to witness firsthand what damage and trauma has been manufactured from post-colonial settlements. Its inviting animation style and overall aesthetic gives an impression of Atsi culture and community through its cultural visual landscape, voiceover from an elder, and use of song lines. It all leads to this idea that development issues for young Indigenous children and disconnection from extended families may be overcome through supportive education practices and community participation. They also manage an Instagram account that posts frequent imagery of their campaign involvement, such as the Close the Gap campaign, and imagery with community work in rural Indigenous schools and communities. By spreading this viral use of information, it represents what positive affirmations the Healing Foundation has performed and their aims to further achieve the reduction of trauma barriers with Indigenous identity.
The Healing Foundation aims to provide a platform for stolen generations victims' voices, in turn persuading other victims to speak out. Through this foundation, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are able to unionise to persuade governments and greater society of the persisting challenges they continue to face. This is seen in the Career Healing Forum report. The Foundation's emphasis on healing from the intergenerational trauma provides a motivating space for victims to work through their trauma-related issues. This displays the Healing Foundation's motivation to reach audiences locally and digitally, creating a more accessible healing space.
Achievements as a result of these strategies. The Healing Foundation launched stories from communities, specifically how suicide rates fell into 2 Indigenous communities at the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Suicide Prevention Conference in Perth on the 21st of November 2018. The stories captured from the communities of the Yarraburra and Tiwi Islands demonstrate the power of community control and self-determination. The Healing Foundation engaged with Indigenous Australians through the exploration in the dramatic fall of suicide rates across both communities from the high rates they experienced in the 1990s. The stories of suicide prevention derived from the communities of the Yarraburra and Tiwi Islands are both unique and community-led. Because of this, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Suicide Prevention Evaluation Project provided funding to the Healing Foundation to work alongside each community so that their story could be told and shared with others. Thus, a standout and overall achievement of the Healing Foundation supports young people and their families to address the devastating impacts of intergenerational trauma to strive for equality.
Despite its success, the Healing Foundation is limited in its capacity to fulfill their primary objective of healing. The acting for now pre-budget submission of 2022 to 2023 by the Healing Foundation highlights that significant new funding is required to fulfill this objective and, quote, get this done and get this done now. The Foundation needs investment to cover existing services and meet new demands. The Healing Foundation equips healing sectors, workforces, and systems with survivor-led knowledge on how to make healing happen. Doubling the base funding to the Healing Foundation will ensure voices of survivors and their communities are amplified and embedded in national policy forums and decision-making processes. Another limitation is the need for policy responses from all Australian governments to assist the healing process. Even with the Healing Foundation's extensive advocacy, government investment into preventative systematic change is urgently needed to address inequities. Nonetheless, the success of the Healing Foundation in reaching their objectives despite these limitations is undeniable. Thank you for listening. Despite its success,